This plant behind me is okra. What a pretty flower. Okra is a very interesting plant. Did you know it's a perennial plant? See, here in the United States, we tend to grow it as an annual. It's not actually an annual. Okra comes from Africa. It was brought here during the slave trade. It's a perennial tropical hibiscus that we tend to eat seed pods off of. It's in the same family as cotton, hibiscus, and mallow. Any good southerner has okra in their garden. It's very easy to grow. And like I said, we tend to grow it as an annual. But it can grow for 3, 5 years as long as the freeze doesn't kill it. So there's not a whole lot of places in the United States where you're not going to have a problem where a freeze comes through and wipes it out. Except in Central and South Florida. You can plant this and grow it for 3 to 5 years and beyond if you choose, as long as you can protect it from that freeze. This makes it a very viable long-term crop for Florida. These plants are only a few months old, but I have grown a few that have managed to survive upward to 4.5, 5 years. Not quite going over the 5-year mark. The key to being able to do that is making sure that it's protected from a north wind. If it's going to be a cold year, you kind of treat it a lot like you would a tomato here in Florida, and you cover it. You might even put some light bulbs in there to keep it nice and warm. Now, it don't do well in the winter here. They're not really going to grow. They do like their high heat and they like their high humidity. Like right now, today, it's a rainy day and they're loving it. We're also dealing with temperatures in the low to mid 90s. They're very, very heavy feeders. I feed mine a lot of fish. I found that over time, it works better to feed them a natural diet so that they adjust to my environment than giving them something like 10-10-10. See, these will connect into the fungal network, and the fungus will share with the plant, just like it would with trees, in exchange for sugars. So, considering it's perennial, this worked out great. As long as you take the time to build your soil. Which brings me to what I'm growing it in. What I'm growing this in is a mix of horse manure, compost, manures from guinea pigs, you could use rabbit as well, wood chips, the native soil, and I feed it a mix of 2 different custom fertilizers. One fertilizer, like I said, is fish. I use a fish J-dam. I make it myself. The other is weed tea. Now, you can get real specific with your weed tea. The weeds I happen to be using in it are phosphorus and potassium fixtures. Don't need to add any more nitrogen because it's getting it from the fish. I sometimes put them down separately, and sometimes I blend them. It depends on how much I need. It's very easy to go into my own environment if I understand what plants do what. Since I happen to have a vine that is a potassium fixer, and I happen to have palms, which are phosphate fixers, and some random grasses, so it does get some nitrogen, and I let that rot down in a barrel or a bucket, and I just take that water and I blend it down a little bit, and I water these areas. If you are in the South, this is something you should be growing. They're extremely prolific. If you're not getting a big harvest, that's okay, because that same plant is going to just put out another and another and another, and it freezes very well. You Just chop it up into your designated size, remove the woody stem, put it in a bag, throw it in the freezer. When you get enough, fry it up, add it to soups, gumbos, whatever happens to be fitting for you. Catch the next video, I'll throw out more tips. As I go along, I'll show people exactly how I do it here.